What's up? It's Marco back here on the Stage Soccer channel. And for a while, I've been talking about players who could really break out and find themselves on the national team for the first time. But looking at the other end, are there any players who I feel like can play their way back onto the national team and, despite basically being looked over for about the last 3 years, find themselves back in the team contributing again? And honestly, I feel like there are a couple of players who are able to do that and a couple of guys who have an outside chance of it. So starting things off, I just want to talk about a player who I feel like has the best chance and somebody who I really feel like should have been recalled a while ago, and that's Julian Green. Julian Green has been a starter in the Bundesliga this season with Greuther Fürth after helping them getting promoted out of the Bundesliga 2. And I feel like we had a lot of promise for him when he was at Bayern Munich, probably a bit misplaced, a bit idealistic, I guess, just seeing a player coming through at Bayern Munich. And we really put too much pressure on him, I feel like. But after he really did find his place very well. I mean, there's not a lot of players who can bounce back from leaving a very good academy, falling down the pyramid, and just find themselves right back up in the Bundesliga. He's done a great job, and his ability on the field is very good. He's a very creative player, much more creative than a lot of our backups. He's good on set pieces, and he can really drive the ball forward very well, keep possession, break lines, honestly, everything that we need out of a midfielder, but he just hasn't been recalled yet. Makes sense. I feel like he is, I still like him as a player, but he is in the advanced midfield. He's behind Weston McKennie, he's behind Yunus Musa, probably behind Busio, and with Greg Berhalter's favorites, he's behind Sebastian Lletget, Christian Roldan, and then he still has to compete with guys like Luca de la Torre, Cole Bassett, Onato Asari, and a lot more. I think that he's probably better than Lletget, he's better than Roldan, but he hasn't been given that chance, and it's going to be tough for him to get that opportunity because, you got a couple players who are better than him and a couple who are just Berhalter's favorites. Honestly, I think at this point, he's probably not going to get called up next month, but if he stays in that Greuther Fürth team, he continues to do well. I think by November, when MLS playoffs are really getting started, you're going to have him be a bit hesitant to call up some MLS regulars because their teams don't want them tired for the playoffs. I feel like come November, Julian Green's still playing. He's still doing well. I think he's going to get another chance for the national team, and that time's coming. He's been doing very well, and I'm really excited to see him again. Next, we got a pair of center backs with hyphenated last names, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Erik Palmer-Brown. Starting with Cameron Carter-Vickers, I've got a hard time seeing him back in the national team soon. I mean, we got a very strong group of players. John Brooks, Miles Robinson, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream. They were all called up, along with Walker Zimmerman and James Sands. Then you have to deal with Chris Richards and Matt Miazga, who are probably ahead of him, and maybe even a healthy Eric Long. But, it's really going to be a struggle for him to get playing time. He honestly might be behind somebody like Kessler and Erik Palmer-Brown, obviously. But he is going to be getting game time in the Europa League. And something about Cameron Carter-Vickers is he's been steadily just becoming a better and better player. There was a time when he was at Tottenham where he would struggle against League One teams, but now he found himself in the Championship, helped Luton out of a relegation battle, he helped Bournemouth push for promotion, and now he's at Celtic. And if he continues to do well, continues to adapt well, you can see him continuing to make those jumps. Maybe he goes from Celtic to a team getting promoted into the Premier League. Maybe he could find himself somewhere else. Who knows? He's getting game time in the Europa League now. There's a lot of room for growth for Cameron Carter-Vickers. But one problem with him is I feel like he needs to get into a rhythm as a player. He's not somebody who can just jump in and do well. We saw that at Tottenham whenever he would get chances with Tottenham, he would basically screw it up. I feel like there was a game a couple years back where an Akinfenwa just completely embarrassed him. He wasn't able to deal with him. He had a really poor showing in the Europa Conference League, and if that's the case for him, I don't feel like he's somebody you can just throw into the national team because if he struggles to make those adaptations and struggles just with getting just thrown into the water, that's not something you really want to do, especially in a time where we're only going to be playing competitive games for a very long time. So Cameron Carter-Vickers, I could see him getting in the national team, but I feel like he's going to have to force his way in. Erik Palmer-Brown, again, I feel like it'll be tough. I mentioned all the guys ahead of him, but I feel like he has a clearer path to the national team than Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's at Troyes right now, and while he isn't playing yet, if he does become a starter and gets a consistent game time there, he's all of a sudden a starter in a top 5 league, and we do not have too many of those. And if Erik Palmer-Brown, he can continue to play well for them. I mean, Like, all of a sudden, if we have a starter at a top 5 league who's looking very promising, like, Mark McKenzie isn't playing at Genk. Tim Ream, he's a culture guy, but he's not somebody you really want to be playing in games. Walker Zimmerman, James Sands, their spots aren't nailed down on the team. Like, I feel like if he does very well at Troy, if he puts in some really good performances and helps them out, he could easily find himself into the national team. And I feel like that path for him is very much there. Now, he is only there on loan, so, I feel like he really has to move on from Man City. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, man, a good Troy's performance, that could be huge. If he's able to find somewhere where he can really stick around, that'd be good. And I feel like there's definitely a path for Erik Palmer-Brown back to the national team. So next, those are two guys who probably got called up a bit earlier than they should have. And, it's going to be tough for them to get game time. It was going to be tough for them to get back into the team once everything got really settled. But now we got some guys who have been in the national team for a while. And, Michael Bradley. I honestly don't think he'll be recalled again, but I wanted to mention him. It seems like Greg Berhalter prefers Jackson Ewell over Bradley in that old role that Bradley used to have, and Will Trapp as well. And Jackson Ewell isn't even getting game time because, that they're just not that good at this point on the national team level. And honestly, even if Jackson Ewell got hurt, I feel like Will Trapp or hopefully Gianluca Busio would be called up ahead of him. Or maybe even just forget the deep-lying playmaker. They don't make too many plays. And just go with a more defensive option. So I really don't think Bradley's going to get back into the team at 34. Next, staying in Toronto, Jozy Altidore. He is only 31, but I feel like it'll be difficult for him. He's only had 2 goals for Toronto so far this year, and he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. And on top of that, a lot of MLS strikers have passed him by. I mean, Yazi Zardes, he's just better. Ricardo Pepe's been putting in some really good performances. Daryl DK is always there. Jesus Ferreira. Honestly, like someone like a CJ Sapong would probably be preferred over Altidore at this point. And I really don't think Altidore has it in him to be recalled. Maybe if he gets on like a really hot scoring month, like anything can happen, but I don't think that'll happen. Yeah. Anything can happen except that. Then Brad Guzan. I feel like this is an interesting one because he has been recently called into the Gold Cup, but I don't feel like he'll play again for the team. He might be called up again, but yeah, he's not going to be playing. He's past at this point. He had a really good career, but like it's done at this point. He's obviously behind Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, and even in the MLS, guys like Sean Johnson and Bill Hammond I feel like are above him. Though, let's say one of the top 3 get hurt. Bill Hammond's you can't really rely on him. He's injured too often. And, there's maybe for like an MLS-only team, like a January camp or something, I feel like he'll get back in. But honestly, I'm not sure if you play him ahead of like a Chitaro Dunze, a Ciji Dos Santos, like someone like that. Like maybe he'll get called up again, but I don't think it'll even matter. Next, Timothy Chandler. I mean, right back hasn't been... Weirdly, despite how much talent we have there, hasn't been set in stone for this team. Dest, we don't even know what side he prefers. He's really weak defensively. Then DeAndre Edlin hasn't been too solid, and a lot of other guys are just unproven. And Timothy Chandler, he could be an option, but he's had too many really good runs of form in the Bundesliga over the past few years, and he hasn't been recalled, that at this point, I don't think it's going to happen. Definitely not under Berhalter. Like, I think there was a point where he had to put up, he was scoring, 3 goals in, a month or something like that from right back, or at least right wing back, and he wasn't recalled, and it's he's just not happening at this point. So, even though I feel like Timothy Chandler is pretty underrated as a player, it's not going to happen. I was going to mention Fabian Johnson, and he's just not on a team at this point. I don't even know what's going on with him. Then, speaking of Germans, Bobby Wood. He's come to the MLS, and he's not even German. He's from Honolulu. I don't even think he was... I think he went there for the academy. I don't even think he had to move there for, a military reason or something. But he's at Real Salt Lake, and he's somebody who I feel like could get recalled. Again, striker isn't really set in stone for the team. And if he has a great run of form, we know that he is a good player. He has had good moments for the national team. And he is only 28. But... despite that, it's the same thing as Altidore. Would you call him up over Zardes? No. Would you call him up over Pepe? No. DK? No. And it's just like, could he hit like a really good run of form? Yeah, but even when he was in the national team, he was only doing well in Bundesliga too, and like I don't like as we've seen with Green, that's not good enough, and honestly, not even sure if he's going to be like an MLS All-Star level player. So yeah, I don't feel like Bobby Wood has it in him to get recalled. Last guy I really wanted to go into was Darlington Nagbe, and honestly, it was almost weird that he wasn't called back to the national team under Berhalter. He played it with him at the Crew, and he's a very solid player. I'm not sure if I'd want him over like a Julian Green, Jelen Busio, Musa, McKinney, like all of them, but it's kind of weird that he wasn't in the team, but it seems like he's unofficially retired from the national team. And, that's kind of disappointing, because I remember back in, like, 2015, it was a huge deal when Nagbe got a citizenship and he was able to play for the national team, but, yeah, nothing really came from it, which is pretty disappointing. I mean, honestly, with how many favorites Greg has in the midfield, I don't see him being persuaded out of retirement, and I don't think Nagbe's going to get back in the team. Then there are a couple guys who are out of the team due to injuries, like Jordan Morris, Aaron Long. We'll have to see how they are when they come back. Aaron Johansson, I wanted to get into him, but he's out for the season. I don't think that's going to happen. And someone like an Iko Para, again, dealing with injuries too much, so I don't think it's going to happen. But, overall, I feel like there are players who could be recalled into the team and, get going again. I didn't even mention someone like a Matt Alasunde or, guys who we just randomly threw some call-ups to. Like, they could easily get some game time for us, but, at this point, I really think Julian Green, he'll get recalled. I can easily see one of Cameron Carter-Vickers or Erik Palmer-Brown eventually getting a chance. Maybe somebody else due to injuries, but, that's all I really have to talk about. It's me basically saying that we need to recall Julian Green. He's a really good player, and we need him in the midfield. Yeah, that's all I've talked about today. I'll see you.